Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. I just wanted to show you this lovely text in the book that I mentioned. Again, for a book that's 122 years old, it's pretty significant. This is the text I'm actually reading, and I mean, aside from being a little bit nicer, there's great care taken in putting these books together. And indeed, that was true for the ancients as well. But we're here to hear the story. Let's start at chapter 8. Chapter 8 begins thus. And when the waters had swelled on the earth 150 days, God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God caused a wind to blow across the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were stopped up, and the rain from the sky was held back. The waters then receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters diminished, so that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters went on diminishing until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and sent out the raven. It went to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out the dove to see whether the waters had decreased from the surface of the ground. But the dove could not find a resting place for its foot, and returned to him to the ark, for there was water all over the earth. So, putting out his hand, he took it into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came back to him towards evening, and there in its bill was a plucked off olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the waters had decreased on the earth. He waited still another 7 days, and sent the dove forth, and it did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, the waters began to dry from the earth. And when Noah removed the covering of the ark, he saw that the surface of the ground was drying. And in the 7th month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. God spoke to Noah, saying, Come out of the ark, together with your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds, animals, and everything that creeps on the earth, and let them swarm on the earth and be fertile and increase on earth. So Noah came out together with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives. Every animal, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that stirs on the earth, came out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking of every clean animal and of every clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the pleasing odor, and the Lord said to himself, Never again will I doom the earth because of man, since the devisings of man's mind are evil from his youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living thing as I have done. So long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So, the disaster that we've seen in the previous chapter has been averted, and it's very methodical in the way that it establishes it. The dates and the times, it's kind of hard to follow, but the best that I can see is Noah basically spent a year and a half on the ark waiting for something to happen. Now, the logistics of having 2 of every animal, 2 of every bird, etc., etc. Again, if we allow for this to be a regional event, all of a sudden this becomes very possible. I don't even know if we could put 2 of every animal, much less 7 pairs of clean animals and non-clean animals on anything that we have in the world today. But the mythology comes from somewhere. Again, I can see it being a local flood myth that has been spread to us throughout 10, 12,000 years of human memory. And you can trace this sort of stuff back. Now, the interesting thing, it spends a lot of time on the raven and the dove. The raven just goes to and from. It doesn't actually say the raven returned to him, which is the opposite of what popular culture says. It says it flew to and fro, whereas the dove came back to him. Well, anyone who's seen a raven versus a dove, a raven is a pretty big bird, and doves are pretty small. So it's quite logical the dove didn't have the stamina to keep out there, which is why Noah had to reach out and catch it. Noah showing a moment of mercy, perhaps, or Noah just trying to make sure God's investment wasn't lost. But the nice part about this is, again, we see some confirmation. Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking of every clean animal and every clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. Again, he's offering meat to God. Not sure how he kept the animals fed for a year and a half, not the important part at the present time. First thing that he thinks to do when he comes out of the ark is say, I better feed God. That's very bizarre if you ask me. Because I think at that point, anything offered up would be welcome. But it does make God change his mind, and for a time, everything is okay. We'll get into that in chapter 9, which gets pretty intense. Are you ready, everybody? Buckle up, because here we go. Chapter starts a bit weak, but it ends on a real wacky... just let me start reading. Chapter 9. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fertile and increase and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will be upon all the beasts of the earth and upon all the birds of the sky, everything with which the earth is astir, and upon all the flesh of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every creature that lives shall be yours to eat. As with the green grasses, I give you all these. You must not, however, eat flesh with its lifeblood in it. But for your own lifeblood I will require a reckoning. I will require it of every beast too. Of man too will I require a reckoning for human life, of every man for that of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in his image did God make man. Be fertile then and increase, abound on the earth and increase in it. Then God said to Noah and his sons with you, I now establish my covenant with you and your offspring to come, and with every living thing that is with you, birds, cattle, and every wild beast as well. All that may have come out of the ark, every living thing on earth, I will maintain my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God further said, This is the sign I set for the covenant between me and you, and every living creature with you for all ages to come. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and... between me and you and every living creature among all flesh, so that all waters will never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures, all flesh that is on earth. That, God said to Noah, shall be the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Ham being the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole world branched out. Noah, the tiller of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk, and he uncovered himself within his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a cloth, placed it against both their backs, and walking backward, they covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned the other way, so they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son did to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves, shall he be to his brothers." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be a slave to them, and may God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be a slave to them." Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and of all the days of Noah came to 950 years, and he died. Thus ends chapter 9. Wow, this is a blockbuster chapter. Let's look at God, who till now has never said anything about what animals can be eaten. And right now, remember, there's no clarification what's a clean animal and unclean animal. But now all of a sudden he says, you can eat anything, just don't eat its blood. And he gives them multiple warnings about not shedding the blood of your fellow man, and even says that creatures should not be allowed to shed the blood of fellow man. Highly curious. It refers to a lot of later things that happened, so somebody has gone back and edited this. It's not an original story, but it's certainly an important one. God further mentions the covenant being his bow in the clouds, which is commonly interpreted as a rainbow. But do you know there's also a moonbow? It's true. I've seen it. There's rainbows during the day and moonbows during the night, and the moonbows are really fantastic. I would honestly say this passage probably was written after somebody saw a moonbow, because it is utterly amazing to see. Even in the modern day, when we understand what the technology is, this thing looked like a floodlight coming from a distance away. So to the ancient mind, it must have been magical indeed. We now find out what Noah used to do for a living. He was a vintner. He planted grapes and he made wine. Now, wine in ancient times was very different from the drink that we had today. The ancient Greeks were masters of wine, but they used to temper it with water because it was pretty strong and pretty bitter. I myself have made wine using only basic ingredients, and I can tell you it smells like death. Tastes not so bad, but yeah, it's not something you want to be chugging a lot of. But when Noah becomes drunk, we get into a lot of coded terminology. And this is something that floors even the best biblical scholars, so there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. We see that Ham is the father of Canaan, and it repeats this a couple times. Ham is the father of Canaan, Ham is the father of Canaan. And Ham saw his father's nakedness. Now, at first, this does not seem to be a crime worthy of Noah cursing anybody. I mean, everybody's seen somebody drunk. We all know somebody who's drunk who's done something stupid. You know what? Telling other people, hey, look over here, a guy's done something stupid, is not worth a curse. That being said, uncovering your father's nakedness, uncovering somebody's nakedness, we're going to find out in a little bit, especially start getting into Leviticus, is code. You shall not uncover your mother's nakedness, for it is the same as uncovering your father's nakedness, and it is a mighty sin. You shall not uncover your sister's nakedness, blah, blah. It is uncovering your mother's nakedness, blah, blah, blah. Uncovering nakedness is kind of code word for sex. This is where things get uncomfortable. So the implication seems to be Ham did something unpleasant. And Shem and Japheth, walking backwards, symbolizes them covering their eyes and making sure their father makes it out of this drunken state okay. In other words, whatever Ham was doing, they got him sober again and made him realize what was going on. There's lots of theories to this. But the most curious thing is why Noah curses Canaan. Canaan is Ham's son. So why wouldn't Noah have simply cursed Ham? Well, Ham just got a blessing from God. And I guess you can't really apply a curse to him. But there's another interesting theory that I've seen that again refers to Leviticus, that Ham saw his father's nakedness means Ham, again, supposedly with this connection to Cain in there, Ham slept with Noah's wife. It's never mentioned how many wives Noah had, and this assumes that he had more than one wife. So by Ham sleeping with Ham sleeping with one of Noah's wives, it's possible Noah's 600 years old while this is all happening. A younger wife might be interested in a younger man, and Noah's busy planting his grapes and processing and, kind of like a modern crack addict. They have to sober him in and stage an intervention in order to make him realize what happened. And that would be why Canaan inherited this curse. Because Canaan is the offspring of Ham and this unnamed wife. Because it never gives Noah's wife a name. As a matter of fact, none of these men, aside from Adam, have given their wives a name. No matter what, it's an extremely uncomfortable thing to talk about. And yeah, if you ask really smart people, they would rather skip this entire debate. Just something to be conscious of when reading this. The first part is interesting. The second part, yeah, really, really uncomfortable. But it's part of the sacred text. It's in there. It's a cautionary tale. And by all means, if you have a better theory, I'm willing to listen. Those of you who know me on Twitter at Silverlight Live, you can comment down in the comments. You can send me an email at silverlightlive@gmail.com. All those are acceptable ways to reach me. And if you got a great idea, I might even put an episode together on it. But for now, let's leave ancient times right there. And we're going to get into more of the heroes and the great people and stuff like that afterwards. Because remember, the flood just wiped out the heroes of old and the men of renown, aside from Noah's line. So we're now down to Noah, his sons, their wives, plural, quite possibly and quite probably, because Cain had 2 wives, if you recall. So polygamy was absolutely a concept from the very beginning of the Bible. We don't know how many wives people had, but what we do know is there's a lot of questions in there. But anyways, we wish to thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to buy the merchandise listed in the link down below. And we hope you have a fantastic day.